Well, howdy ho. How you guys doing tonight? A little out of breath here. Had to run downstairs to get a delivery right before the live stream started. I said, oh geez, I don't leave that on the front step, so ran down there real quick. Oh, I'm out of shape. Uh, Welcome to the Savvy Home Seller Weekly Housing Market Show. How the heck are you? I'm Jen Sylvester, and we're going to dig into all things housing market and what the heck's going on. And this week we're talking about layoffs and what's happening with some pretty big retailers and how that impacts the housing market. Something that you should be worried about. Something that how will it impact the housing market? So we're going to dig into that tonight and kind of dissect that as we always do. But let me tell you something. I was talking to one of my referral partners today, and they made it. They pointed out to me. I says, "Geez, I'm a little in a funk this morning, and all the things." I'm like, "What's going on?" And I just seem out of sorts. And is it me? Is it menopause? Is it everybody else? Whatever. And she says, "Jen, tomorrow's a full moon." That explains everything. So, if you're feeling a little sideways today, now, I don't know if you believe in that stuff. I don't know if I believe in that stuff, but I will say that kind of coincidental that it's a full moon tomorrow. And at the very least, if you're able to enjoy a cloudless sky, unfortunately, I have a cloudy sky tonight, but if you've got a nice clear view, it may be a nice show. At the very least. So we're gonna dig into that. We've got a couple folks already in the chat, and we've got let's see here. Get my act together. We got Cindy Atwood with the super chat already. My goodness, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And she's already got pop in a question there. If the days in market for from a listing on July 18th till buyer backed out 8/13, why no paperwork revealed until I insisted finally realtor seals MLS the end of October. And is this a case? Still no paperwork, frustrated. You know what? I'm gonna get into that. And I'm gonna put a pin into that right this very second, Cindy. But you're at the top of the list. You are absolutely at the top of the list, and thanks so much for the super chat. I really, really, really appreciate it. Right out of the gate, we've got Fabiano in the house, and Cindy says, "Check out that moon." 100%. Alex is bad news because we are in a recession. It started getting harder and harder to deny that, I think, Alex. We've got Wiggly Arm Guy. Good to see you. Good to see you. We got Kaylee Mail. I think I'm saying that correctly. Hello. Southeast Georgia. I can still go to the beach and swim in the ocean. Yeah, I was talking to a new referral partner today in Georgia, and they've got some interesting, you guys got some interesting temperature swings down there, from 45 to 70s and not uncommon to get it up into the 80s this time of year. Very, very, very jealous because we don't have those kind of swings up here. Average temp, we're lucky if we get into the upper 50s. And we've got Michael coming in from Mesa, Arizona. All kinds of good folks. Helene Robinson. Oh my goodness. California in the foothills. Woohoo. Very few houses for sale. And as Kate says, it's dark out. I don't know about you guys, but I was like, I'm always conflicted this time of year because of the fact that, yes, I was, celebrating the fact that, oh gosh, get that. There we go. See, it is a full moon. I forgot to take my name off. You guys can't even read the thing on the screen. Good grief. Who's running this show? Yeah, I was glad to get an extra hour of sleep, Saturday night, clocks roll back. And then, Monday rolled around and I'm like, wait, what happened? It's 4:30, 5 o'clock. It's already dark out. Come on. It's too early for that stuff. Oh my goodness. It's just a hot mess. All right, so what do we got going on? So first off, I want you to post your wins as I always do every week. You want to make sure, I want to hear, what's going on good. With all this, we got some negative stuff to talk about tonight. Unfortunately, some not great news for a lot of folks. So, but you know what? Let's change the mojo and share what's going on. That's good in your neck of the world, real estate wise or otherwise. make sure if you can put QQQ or QQ, whatever floats your boat before the question. If you've got a question that you absolutely want me to get to tonight, put that in the chat and I'll make sure I get to it. We've got the poll. I want to, I put the poll out there. I was wondering what I really wanted to know, and I want to know how these layoffs impact you guys that are watching. Has it affected? Has it not affected? Are you afraid that it's going to affect either you or someone family member, friend, neighbor, or otherwise? Let me know. Let me know in the poll. We've got today's headline. So we're talking about, get this thing to work here. There we go. We're talking about multiple layoffs at some big box realtors, retailers. I'm telling you, full moon. It's impacting me. The impact on the housing market, and what, if anything, is going to happen. How does that affect the overall economy? And then I want to touch on how it affects. What is the impact on mortgage interest rates? The Fed did acknowledge, Jerome Powell did acknowledge the layoffs, and even though while we're still in a shutdown, they're kind of in the dark with all their data reporting with the jobs market and so forth. They still are watching these things, and they're taking that into consideration. And there might be another rate cut in the future before the end of the year. So I'm gonna touch on that and briefly bring you guys up to speed. So we're gonna dig in. And again, if you guys have any questions, put QQQ and and whatnot. Okay, it says, funny you asked that question because Jackie's poll yesterday was, do you think housing will go down because of Amazon, etc.? And most people said no. Interesting. I did not know that. Interesting. And Lynn says, we are having an open house this weekend, hoping for greater exposure. Not much action since listing. Things are changing. I'm hearing it across the country. I'm hearing it when I'm talking to my referral partners. There is, it has been happening, but even more so whenever we have catalysts like what we're going to talk about tonight, that just kind of pushes the needle, unfortunately. So this became, this was all over the news last week. And as we went on, first it was 14,000. This article came out on the 28th. The number went up to 30,000 jobs. That corporate job cuts that Amazon made, and they announced what they thought they were going to do, and then they ended up cutting a lot more than they initially had stated. So, and there's a lot of speculation of what the cuts were for, but and I was actually interested once I dug into the information. I was interested to find out that it wasn't exactly what I expected. It says Amazon is planning to cut, and this was on the 27th. Planning to cut as many 30,000 jobs, corporate jobs, beginning Tuesday as the company pares expenses, compensates for overhiring during the peak demand of the pandemic. I want you guys to remember that. I'll come back to it. According to three people, familiar people with the matter, it goes on to say that, some interesting facts and figures. Again, I'm going to put all these articles in the description. You guys can go through this at your leisure, and goes through, some of the numbers of, around Amazon. It says the cuts beginning this week may affect, meaning last week, a variety of divisions, including human resources, known as people experience and technology. That's the one area that they probably don't need to cut. I don't know about you guys, but people experiences, how about don't throw my packages on the front steps instead of just placing them on the front steps? I digress. I watched yesterday as the Amazon guy literally hucked it across the yard onto the guy's front steps. I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyways, this is operations, devices, and services in Amazon Web Services, which is very interesting. Managers of impacted teams were asked to undergo training on Monday on how to communicate with staff following email notifications that will start going out on Tuesday morning. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy is undertaking an initiative to reduce what he described as an excess of bureaucracy, including by reducing the number of managers. He installed an anonymous complaint line for identifying inefficiencies that has elicited some 1,500 responses and over 450 process changes, which is very interesting. It's actually a very good idea. Jassy said in June that the increased use of AI tools would likely lead to further job cuts, particularly through automating repetitive and routine tasks. A lot of folks automatically think that when somebody says, "Oh, the job is being replaced by AI," what's the first thing you think of? You think of a big robot in a car factory making the cars. And the guys aren't putting the cars together on the lifts and all the things. It's the robot arms and doing all the manufacturing. And the reality of it is you've got tools like ChatGPT and all the similar type AI products that can create these automations where you would be able to, you had to manually do this before, but now you can cut, instead of somebody actually just sitting at, a data entry person or something of that nature, a computer can do it for you. And at a lot, significantly less money, less hassle, and they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's not just manufacturing jobs that are being targeted for these AI jobs. It is in corporate America, in the offices. It says this latest move signals that Amazon is likely realizing enough AI-driven productivity gains within corporate teams to support a substantial reduction in force. Amazon has also been under pressure in the short term to offset the long-term investments in building out its AI infrastructure. This is where it's going to be interesting because you need humans to build out the infrastructure. You need humans to program the AI, the automations. Some of it can be set, by telling it, do this, do that. But the fact of the matter is you're going to have some sort of human influence to monitor it. So the question is, full out replacing or downsizing. In other words, having jobs of a different caliber. It says Amazon appears to be expecting another big holiday season. This was interesting. It plans to offer 250,000 seasonal jobs to help staff warehouses, among other needs, the same as in the prior 2 years. I found that amazing, in the sense that, with the way things are going right now, with the consumer confidence level where it is, where the economy is, where it is, consumer spending is down big time. People are starting to pull back, and yet they're still hiring. And I guess, my opinion, my commentary on that is that it's a sign of society as a whole. Whereas where a lot of folks should probably pull back and not spend and pull back on their holiday shopping and not spend as much, they're still going to be out there. Why? Because they are, well, maybe, what do they call it? Retail therapy, number one. But it doesn't, for the same reason when I was doing a lot of foreclosure properties, when I was doing a lot of foreclosures with banks years and years ago, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, I would go into properties that were foreclosed on. These folks could not afford their mortgage payment. They lost the house to the bank. The bank put it on auction. Nobody bought it, so the bank took possession of the property. And they would have a decent car in the driveway, big screen TVs, all the things. And it's an interesting psychological shift because of the fact that people will still spend, even if they probably shouldn't. Now, Amazon is not the only company that is, on this train of downsizing. So this was coming out of Minnesota. It says around 1,800 jobs expect to be cut from Target HQ on Tuesday. Roughly 1,000 people were expected to receive layoff notices from Target's corporate headquarters on Tuesday. It says it follows the company's announcement last week that 1,000 team members and 800 open jobs would be cut. The company said no in-store roles, or supply chain jobs, are expected to be impacted by the layoffs. Most of the cuts will happen at the company's Minneapolis headquarters, where employees were told to work from home this week. Since it's a slower economy, there's not as many expansion plans going on and not as much hiring. So you don't need as many managers to oversee employees. So you would think that the economy is struggling, and people aren't not as many people are shopping. So I think a lot of people would assume when you read these articles, read these headlines. So that means that they're, the person at the entry level positions, the folks that are on, boots on the ground, those are the first to go. No, they're targeting the bureaucracy. They're targeting, trimming the fat from the upper, from the upper level, for this exact reason. If you bring on a ton of people for a ton of expansion, and then it's like it's not in the cards, those are the folks. Those are the folks that are getting trimmed. UPS, 48,000 jobs. It says, same. UPS posted third quarter results that handily beat Wall Street's expectations and gave details around the turnaround effects, including approximately 48,000 job cuts. It says 34 operational positions, and they also closed daily operations of 93 leased and owned buildings during the first 9 months of this year as part of its turnaround plan. It also announced approximately 14,000 job cuts, with mostly within management. This is in January. UPS announced that it had reached a deal with Amazon, its biggest customer, to lower its volume by more than 50%. I've always wondered, with the way that, as I'm a regular Amazon shopper, how, the fact that if you're an Amazon Prime member, and you only have to order this small amount of product to get free shipping, and shipping with UPS is not cheap. How financially do they do this? How do they make the numbers work? Well, you know what? The roosters come home to roost, I guess, because that's what they're doing. And interestingly enough, and I was actually surprised to learn this, is as the company had partnered with Amazon for almost 30 years. It kind of, I'll be honest, I'm feeling kind of old. I'm like, really? Really? Well, Amazon started as a bookstore, online bookstore, right? And so it's been around for a lot longer than I think we realized. And they had partnered with Amazon for 30 years. And when its contract came up this year, UPS decided to reassess the relationship. It says UPS realized cost savings of approximately $2.2 billion as of September 30th, and anticipates achieving $3.5 billion total year-over-year cost savings in 2025. A lot of folks being impacted. A lot of top level management. And the biggest question is the impact this has on the market, and how does all these folks losing their job, how does that impact the market? Let's see, what do we got here over in the chat? We got Blue Jeans 94 in the house. How you doing? And let's see, we've got Celeste says, hi Jen, I have a unique situation. I own real estate, currently zoned general zoned. All right, I'm gonna come back. I want to finish up on this, and then I'm gonna come back to you 110%, Celeste. So stick around. Please. Wiggly arm guy says, how about reducing the millions in bonus payments the big bananas get every quarter? That deserves a round of applause, my friend. This is the thing. I'm gonna vent. If you're watching this, trust me. No one's watching this, that is a big banana over there. So, and even if they were, I wouldn't care. But give me a break. Bonuses for what? I mean, hey, I am 100% supporter of capitalism. You earn what you go after. You control your own. I'm self-employed. 30 years self-employed. If I don't work, I don't get paid. End of story. That's the way I've lived and raised my family. Um, if I, depending on the circumstance, I may have to work harder for the same amount of money, but if I really want to do XYZ, then I've got to dig in and I got to put the time in and all the things. So I am a full believer of a good day's, hard work and pay, but really thousands and hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in bonus. I want a bonus. I want a bonus. Yeah, we should all get a bonus just for showing up in life. Seriously. Um, Ridiculous. Now, when I was getting ready for this live stream, there's a lot of different ways that this affects the housing market. And, there was an article by oh gosh, you know what? I don't even remember. This was in Seattle that was posted last week, and it talked about the Amazon layoffs announcement, how it's affecting the real estate market, and they interviewed a couple real estate agents, boots on the ground, to find out what was actually happening, and it says that they're already starting to feel it, with the impact of massive layoffs. Home buyers, homeowners and buyers are dealing with the fallout, scrambling with the fallout. And the agent they talked to says, been we've fielding calls left and right since the very, very early morning. Of course, if there are going to be folks that get the news, take a step back, take a breath. Maybe they have some reserves. Maybe it's not immediate. A lot of these are not. I think it was Target that the folks got the notices, but they're not happening. They weren't given their pink slip for get out of here today. But then there's going to be those that fight or flight and panic and immediately pick up the phone and say, we can't, because maybe they're over leveraged, we can't afford this house based on unemployment, salary, or whatnot. Folks that maybe spent a little bit more than they should have. And they said, we got to get out. And so it says we haven't seen anything of this magnitude in the last few years. Well, of course not, because people were spending money left and right during the pandemic, and it slowed down, but nothing, drastic except for southeast, southern states, your Florida, your Louisiana, your Texas, that area felt it because of the new construction boom during the pandemic primarily, but it really hasn't been felt significantly. As opposed to, as an overnight impact, whereas this is an immediate impact because of the number of jobs. And the article just kind of went on to say that, these new developments in the job market, at least for the next few months, and make it more of a buyer's market. Yes, as Amazon had layoffs. We remember just a few years ago, the market survived that. It wasn't a free-for-all. We kind of bounced back. What it goes on to say, though, is that the type of homeowner, the type of managers that, a lot of these, because they are in management positions, upper level positions, the homes that they own, it's gonna be a different caliber. So you're talking, higher, maybe potentially higher level homes. How does that impact your average everyday home buyer? Maybe very little, potentially. Time will tell. But there's something else going on that's even more important than what you think of immediately with people losing jobs and then having to lose their home. You got to that is an outcome, but there's another impact that is, it kind of slides, it kind of sneaks in, that you may not think about and you may not realize, and that is illustrated by this article by The Street that was posted, yes, a couple days ago, Friday. Home Depot raises alarm bells with unexpected closure and layoffs. Okay, this is where I think we're going to feel more impact in the housing market. Is this type of fallout? Over the last few years, Home Depot has been battling a weak consumer demands, concerns over inflation, housing affordability, has led shoppers to shift their spending habits. I've been talking about this for a while. Every time someone is cheering on a housing crash, every time you think about, the benefits of a housing crash would bring prices down, bring home prices down. That's the benefit. And what I always respond with is, yeah, but is the price worth the cost of admission? The cost of admission, oh great, now you can now the home prices are coming down, but what's the cost? What is it actually going to cost you? And the cost is the fact that people stop spending money at places like Home Depot. And this is happening. This is in Home Depot's second quarter earnings report in 2025. It revealed that its U.S. comparable sales increased by 1.4% year over year. However, data from Placer.ai revealed that customer visits at the retailer's same store locations dropped 2.6% year over year during the quarter. Home Depot during earnings call in August, Home Depot executives warned investors that customers continue to delay funding larger discretionary home improvement projects such as bathroom, kitchen remodels due to concerns about high mortgage rates and general economic uncertainty. The housing market hasn't even crashed. This is the impact. It says even though the 30-year mortgage rate in the U.S. has decreased slightly over the last few months, it remains above 6%, which has led many consumers to put off purchasing new homes as affordability shrinks. This is going to cause. This is causing Home Depot to pull back and close stores. So it goes on to say that this is that currently Home Depot operates 325 distribution centers across the U.S. These locations are responsible for receiving, storing, packing, etc. And it has the Home Depot subsidy HD Supply has unveiled plans to shut down its distribution facility in Laverne, Tennessee, before January 9th, 2026. Now, the closure will result in 108 HD Supply employees being laid off. Okay, you say, well, 108, it's not that much. It's not a huge, tremendous. Those 108 people will feel it, but it's not 14,000. But wouldn't you say that this is maybe potentially the tip of the iceberg when you see spending at Amazon and Target, you ordering things via UPS? I regularly buy things for my DIY projects at home through Amazon. I will rotate through depending on the product, depending on how quickly I need it. Lowe's. I'm fortunate enough to have a Lowe's less than 10 minutes away. I got a Home Depot a little over 10 minutes away. So I have some choices there, but often it's like I don't need it today. I just order from Amazon. Sometimes the price is cheaper. If I'm not doing those projects, none of them are getting my money. None of them. And if you take my circumstance, multiply it by, I don't know, 1 million people because of people losing their jobs, people, having affordability concerns, people that can't pay their credit card bills, people that can't pay their car bills. They're overextended on, buying their cars too expensive. All the things which are starting to happen. Well, what is the outcome? Is it possible to see Lowe's right behind it very soon? I would think so. And this is the kind of fallout that we've got to be on the lookout for in terms of the indirect hit on the housing market. Because when somebody buys a house, that's typically what they do. They're going to buy the house, whether it's a new house. It's typically not even if it's a new house. If it's an older home and they do renovations, they're going to say, okay, well, we are financially okay to do this, but we're not going to do any updates or repairs because that's what we can afford. We're going to stay with what we can afford. It's going to have a negative impact on the economy overall. I want to jump over the chat here and see what's popping and get to some of these questions. We got a lot of folks in the house. Good to see you all. Julie Johnson in the house. Julie says UPS plane crashed this evening at 5 p.m. near the Louisville airport. Oh my goodness. Good grief. I hope they're okay. That's awful. That is terrible. Thank you for sharing that. Chuck says the bigger issue with places like Amazon is that they don't pay the majority of their workers a living wage. Agreed. Amazon is a drain on the economy. I 100% agree. They do absolutely 100% agree. Uh, zombie breakfast. OG zombie breakfast. I love your handle. My husband was laid off 1 year after we bought our overpriced house. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. And we cannot afford the mortgage on my income. It's been several months. We are running low on savings, and I think we should sell even at a loss while we still can, if that's even possible. But my in-laws just offered to pay our mortgage for the near future. I still worry that keeping the house is a bad idea. I think in a situation like that, what you got to have a really solid, down to earth, look in the mirror, be honest with yourself conversation. Sit down with a paper and pencil. You got to look at long range plans. If you're getting financial help, and number one, is it sustainable? Number two, like, this is temporary. What is in the cards to make it not temporary? You plan on getting a second job? You plan on, what is your husband's situation? Do they have job prospects? If they've got a job prospect, wow, what does that look like? And how quickly do you think that is, going to materialize? I think we often operate on hope, avoidance of pain, right? And not, like, obviously you don't want to sell your house at a loss. Obviously you don't want to move. It's traumatic. But on the flip side, if you're delaying the inevitable, you're going to be doing more harm than good, because, ultimately, if the help runs out, now you're in the, potentially, looking at foreclosure, which could ruin your credit for 7 years. You could potentially be racking up credit card debt, which could lead to a whole nother slew of issues. Being honest with yourself and acknowledging your situation, I think, is probably the first thing that I would do if I were in your situation. And believe me when I'm telling you, living through some experiences in my life, I think that's exactly what you need to do. And then know that every home can be sold. If you sell it at a loss, there's a thing called a short sale. I did plenty of those when the market crashed. Here it was 06, 07 is when we felt it, Massachusetts. And we were because because prices went so high so quickly, and people were leveraging. They were 100% financing, no down payment, little down payment. When the market crashed, there was no equity to cover that fall. So people were underwater. They owed more than the house was actually worth, and we would do a short sale. Now, short sales are not for the weak of heart. They are grueling. You have to write letters telling them why you need a short sale. Talk to the bank. It's not a guaranteed thing. You could get an offer from, a reasonable offer from a buyer, and your agent could say, what, this offer is reasonable. It's the best that you're going to do. Now you're going to take that offer, and now you have to convince the bank on why it's the best offer. And I'll be honest, though, that process could take 6 months. And while it's taking 6 months, keep in mind, the short sale department does not talk to the foreclosure department. It would think that the bank is the bank, and if you're making an effort, that they would put a pause on these things because you're making an effort. It doesn't work that way. They could foreclose if you miss a payment, one payment, and they'll start the foreclosure process. If you get 90 days late, they can schedule the auction. Now, does that happen every time? And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to be real, but if it takes you 6 months to go through the short sale process, you could go into foreclosure before you hit the short sale approval. And it's possible that you could go 3 or 4 months and the buyer backs out. I had a couple circumstances during that time when the market was just absolutely, it was awful. It was awful. And I remember this one particular circumstance where it was almost, oh gosh, it was approaching 18 months, over 18 months. And we went through 3 buyers. The first buyer would hang out 3 months, and they're like, we can't, we're moving on. Same thing with the next buyer. Keep in mind, you got to entice them. Usually you get a little better price when you buy a short sale because you're waiting for an unknown period of time. And then finally, the last buyer hung in there, and we got an approval from the bank, but it was a siege. It was a siege. There are other options you may want to look at, in terms of, if you're in an area where you can rent the property, and possibly do that just to hold on to it. but being real and maybe saying, you know what, maybe we move in with family or relatives and until and hold on to that property to the point where we get our feet under us. And if we can get rental to cover the mortgage, start now. If you're worrying about it, start now is my best advice. Um, there you go. Sorry if that was a little bit more than you bargained for. I just want to help you guys. Um, let's see. Do, 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 do. D says Home Depot hasn't lowered their cost yet, but they can and should. I agree. I can't believe how much some of this stuff is cost. I honestly have a whole bunch of stuff in my cart, home improvement stuff, waiting for Thanksgiving and see if, because oftentimes, and here's a little those that have Amazon Prime, you may or may not know this, but if you put it in the cart and don't buy it, just let it sit in the cart for a while, they will entice you with better prices. They will entice you. Not only that, if you buy something, watch the price after you purchased it. I have absolutely bought something the following week, it's $20 cheaper. I'm buying it again and return just like I would at a regular retail store. I buy it again to get the price match and then return the other one. I mean, there's no harm in that. You're just getting the best price, but they do that all the time and you can save some money that way. Um, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. You're very welcome. Says no job prospects, and I am not optimistic due to the industry he was in. I appreciate your insight. Just want to be realistic, and I feel like I'm the only one. Yeah, you know what? It you've got to put your blinders on. You've got to do your research. You've got to it's a crock pot situation. You're in it for the long haul, and I'm very I'm overly optimistic sometimes on things, but I've learned the hard way that, being cautiously optimistic, being realistic is going to save you a lot of heartache. So hang in there, hang in there. And you know what? Sometimes I'm also a believer that doors open and close for a reason. And this thing that, when you're laid off from a job, uh, you go through that process and it is grueling. It's grueling. And then sometimes people are like, great, I didn't want that job anyways. Terrible, nightmare boss, all the things. But sometimes you're like, why? This is never going to happen, whatever. And then a door opens and you've got to be aware, you've got to be looking, you've got to be open to seeing the opportunities. And then you walk through the door, whether it be being trained at an AI job, because that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be looking to train people for brand new positions that didn't exist before. And even though it might be something that is not in your wheelhouse, maybe it's something that you're not necessarily used to, but if you're open to it, it may end up being the best thing that ever happened. So food for thought. Hang in there. Um, all right, I'm going to get back to before I go on to a little bit another article here. Cindy's question. I want to touch on this. So it says, if days on market is from listing July 18th till buyer backed out August 13th, why no paperwork revealed until I insisted? Not sure what you're asking there. Finally, realtor seals MLS the end of October, not 8/13. Is this a case okay, let's see what is no paperwork frustrated. Are you saying paperwork for the buyer backing out, like a release? Because that's a violation of licensing law because you have a contract that needs to be, so you need to end a contract. If the buyer backed out and they're not, in order before they back up as a listing agent, if you have your property on the market, you get an offer, the buyer gives you a deposit and a good faith deposit. That money the listing agent holds in an escrow account. That escrow account is governed by rules, strong rules on what a listing agency can do with that money. And one of those rules is that that money cannot be given to anyone without certain things happening. Primarily, buyer and seller have to agree. Buyer and seller have to agree. The buyer's backing out. The seller has to agree that they're backing out, and they're releasing the funds. If they release the funds without that agreement, they're breaking the law. They're breaking licensing law. They're violating their escrow agreement. They could get in serious trouble. Serious trouble. And let me tell you, chasing folks for signatures is not fun, but you know what? That's an 80% agent. I talk about these 80% agents that are not, some of them unscrupulous, some of them just don't know what the heck they're doing. Some of them are just lazy. They just want to be done. They're like, yeah, fine, whatever. Done. But I'm curious to know if that's what you're referring to on that. And the MLS, the same thing. I know our MLS requires that as soon as a property is under contract, within 24 hours, it has to be updated. When it's sold, within 24 hours, it has to be updated. We can't sit on it for a month. Again, violation. That's a violation of MLS rules. And as a member of MLS, you have to abide by their rules or you get kicked out. So I think it's not a case of CYA. It sounds like it's a case of laziness, Cindy. And that's not good because you need a paper trail. I would chase after the broker. Find out who the broker is of that firm and find out if that answers your question. Drop in the chat if it doesn't. Let's see. I know there was another question in here. Oh, dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Celeste asked, I have a unique situation on real estate that's currently zoned general. Did you have a follow-up question? I'm looking. You know what, Celeste, if you let me know what your question is. Because I'm thinking, because then you typed oops. So I'm wondering if you hit the enter button too quickly. But let me know if what the follow-up question is on that. I'd love to help you on that. Let's see. Okay. Dun 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 dun. MHO8 says, I did my shopping yesterday thinking you came on at the 30. You thinking 6:30, 5:30? It's always 6 p.m. on the dot, thereabouts. Let's see. We've got Mandy Moses finally one showing after 13 days on the market. You know what? I know that's frustrating, but let's celebrate it, because depending on your market, that might be fantastic. It says, unfortunately, the buyer's agent screwed up and scheduled the appointment for this Thursday, but showed up last Thursday. What the heck? Was not expecting. So embarrassing. 80% agent. Yep. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. People schedule it and it's like the following week, and I go, you're supposed to be. Did you mean this week? I swear, real estate. It's like herding. It's like herding cats sometimes. I'll be honest. They're all over the place. Details. An organization is not necessarily a real estate agent's strong suit, and oftentimes. Not at all. That's just my observation. My observation only. Let's see. Yes, short sales are if they work, it can be a good thing. It saves you from going to foreclosure. The big thing about short sales is that you've got to, like, you're going to do a short sale if you owe more than what the mortgage is. The difference between now and the great financial crisis is the equity that was accumulated for a lot of folks. When the market was going crazy, the number of cash sales and large down payments was second to none in real estate history. I mean, it was the amount of equity that is in equity and property across the country is an all-time high. So even though prices may be coming down, you may be very, very well be fine. You may not realize any gains, but you're not upside down. You may not be upside down. It's going to be a lot less common this time around. Um, yes. Often, more often than not. Let's see. And trust me, I mean, I got ADHD, so sometimes I'm at middle of the night. I'm like, oh, I need that tool. I need that level that changes color when it's level, so I don't have to be like, where's the bubble? Where's the bubble? It turns like red, green, and yellow, and the whole level lights up. Well, I did end up buying that because it's amazing. It's amazing. I just had to have it. But sometimes I'll just put it in my cart and it'll be like, I'm gonna think about it till tomorrow morning, and then I wake up and I'm glad I didn't buy it. Cindy says, yes, the buyer backed out. Supposedly no earnest money, no proof this ever happened. So the thing is what you've got to remember, super, super important, is that when you don't celebrate too early. When you have an accepted offer, say that you get an offer, you accept that offer as a seller, and you say, this is great. Do not celebrate. Do not celebrate. Why? Because it's meaningless until you have 2 signatures on a piece of paper. Number one. Number two, the agent needs to be collecting that deposit within 24 hours, because otherwise the signatures are meaningless. The offer is not binding because you're not holding any money. And a lot of times whenever I sit with my homeowners and we get an offer, I say we're going to be cautiously optimistic. We're going to do a little bit of celebrating. Okay, but we got a lot of hurdles. And you'll be celebrate when we're sitting at the closing table and we're an attorney state, so the attorney says that we're on record. You no longer own the property. Here's your check for the net proceeds. Then you celebrate. But until then, you've got to have 2 signatures on a piece of paper and earnest money. I'm sorry that happened to you, Cindy. Oh, finally had to go to the realtor's manager. At first it was being held in escrow, then suddenly there was never any earnest money. Yeah. I kept asking why the MLS was closing so late instead of the date I agreed to buyer backing out. If it's against the rules, how should I bring this to light? I think the question you probably need to ask yourself, what I would recommend, is what do you personally gain? Is it worth the cost of admission? If you are potentially losing money, that's what you're gaining. But if it's satisfaction because you're frustrated, my question to you is it worth chasing after this? Because the fact of the matter is, being truthful, your actions are not going to change how they do business. They're not going to not do this to the next person. They are who they are. They're not good agents, and they're going to continue to be not a good agent. So you're wasting energy trying to satisfy your own inner frustration instead of saying, you know what, lesson learned, is what it is, happened for a reason, moving on. It may be harder in the moment, but you'll be, when it's in your rearview mirror and you're moving past it and getting to where you want to go, figuratively, you're moving on to the next stage, next plan. You'll be in a better place. And honestly, that's why a lot of these arbitration suits, lawsuits never happen with real estate agents, because that's the fact is, do you want to chase after it? Because you're not going to change how anyone does business. Crappy agents are going to be crappy agents. It is what it is. And, the less time you spend on it, the better off you'll be. The best thing you can do is get away from them as quickly as possible. Put as much distance, and then you can always write a bad review if you're really compelled to do so. Not saying you should. That's your own decision. Let's see. Sydney says, what is the prognosis for buyers in this market? Any increase in inventory on the horizon? Still waiting to find my small ranch house in New York. Well, it is possible. And actually, I actually want to jump to, in terms of the mortgage market, the thing that might cause folks to move a little bit is uh, more pressure on interest rates. So Realtor.com dropped this article late last week about after the Fed did, cut the federal funds rate as we suspected that they would. This article commented about the layoffs. And, the beginning of this article, like I said, you can read through it at your leisure, talks about, leading up to the Fed meeting and so forth and what they went through until they finally decided, they brought the rate down a quarter percent is the range at 3.75 to 4% for the federal funds rate. But if we go down to layoffs mount as shutdown cuts off key labor markets data. It says in recent days, the number of major employers announced significant layoffs. Heighten the risk of elevated unemployment, potentially bolstering the case for further federal rate cuts. It says Powell said that they are tracking news about the layoffs closely, watching for any implications about the impact of AI and automation on job creation. He says you see a significant number of companies either announcing that they are not going to do much hiring or actual doing layoffs, or much of the time they're talking about AI and what it can do. So we're watching that very carefully. And it says, meanwhile, vital federal reports on job growth and unemployment claims are still suspended during the government shutdown. It does go on to say that they are, expecting the financial markets currently are estimating at 84% probability that the Fed will cut its benchmark rate by another quarter point at the December meeting. And if we look at the impact of the mortgage rates and federal funds rates, you can see that, we follow the mortgage rate and we follow the federal funds rate. One does not directly impact, but they do follow in succession, more or less loosely in succession, because of how the federal funds rate impacts the investor market, treasury bills, T-bills, and the buying of those treasury bonds, and then how that affects how the investor activity affects the mortgage rate, and if they continue to drop it, it will indirectly affect it. It may not be the same time. Usually it's not. Usually investors will anticipate a drop, and which happened, last week. The mortgage rate dropped several weeks prior to the Fed meeting because there was a high probability that the federal fund rate they were going to cut the rate. So could this happen in December? Yes. What will that mean? Well, the potential for people moving. Could it potentially, encourage folks to, it'll increase their buying power so that they can move. It closes that gap. If had a small, a low rate when you bought your house, and now you're in a situation where you are getting laid off, or maybe your hours are cut, or whatnot, and you say, or you're doing a pullback because of the general economy, and you're like, what, we need to just be a little bit more realistic. We jumped into this house faster than we should have, and I've had quite a few folks that reached out that have done that and said, what, we're not ready to, I think we're going to take a step back and put this house on the market, and we're going to buy something smaller, maybe something a little bit less expensive, whatnot. We can do that because financially it'll cost us a little bit less money. Could that impact it? Yes. To answer your questions, Sydney, as far as the prognosis for buyers in this market, I think it's going to get progressively better. I think slowly, with an asterisk. Depends on your market. Depends on the market. There are certain markets that it is still going to be tough. The Northeast. If you're buying in the Northeast, it's not going to necessarily improve overnight. Has it improved over the last year and a half? It has, but it's improved in the sense that the urgency and how fast the market's moving, how fast you have to, how much time you have to look at a house, make a decision, make an offer, that it has elongated. You've got more time. You can slow down the process. we're not seeing, because that process has slowed down, because there's not as much hype around offers. These offers are not coming in ridiculously high over asking anymore. They're just not. They're still coming in close to asking, if at all, at either at or a little bit above, but they're not crazy high. So in that respect, if you're in the Northeast market, it is softening, slowing down in terms of the speed of the market. But if you're looking at an area that is, seeing a little bit more pressure, you're going to have more to choose from. You've got to be patient. But more importantly, um, the thing that I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend kind of comes back to what I was talking about earlier, is being honest with yourself about the market and the prospects of the market, because prices are not going to roll back to where they were in 2015, 2010. That's just not, that is highly, highly, highly unlikely, given the data that we have in front of us, given what has happened over the last 10 years, last 5 years of what's happened during the pandemic, and the amount of equity in the people are carrying in their homes. During the great financial crisis, investors were buying properties like crazy, crazy, and people were getting in over their heads. This market was not an investor's market. A pandemic, okay? They weren't, those folks are not buying properties. Startup investors, new investors. It's just why? Because the gap is too small. The risk is too high that you're going to be able to buy that house, fix it up, flip it for a profit. It's a different factor. It's a different factor, and it's not affecting. So it's going to be different. But I would be patient, and I would be, again, be realistic in terms of what you can afford, be realistic in terms of what you want. But more importantly, ask yourself, why do you want to do this in the first place? Why do you want to buy a house? Sydney, why do you want to buy a ranch house? What's your goal there? Is your goal to be, near family? Is your goal to be near nature? Is it just to own a ranch house and you don't care about location? Maybe you start looking at a different location. I think it's being realistic in the sense that if you really want this thing, you've got to, look at what's in front of you and know that the potential will be there. Yes, you have to be patient for, waiting for what you want, but being realistic. I hope that helps. All right, Miss H has a question. If the property was foreclosed and had equity, this is a great question. Does that person get some money back on that foreclosure when that's sold? How about a fern in lieu of foreclosure? Oh, maybe a deed in lieu is what you're referring to. Do they get their money back from the equity too? Okay. Technically, yes. Asterisk. So, if your property was foreclosed on, and yes, if you do have equity, the banks are supposed to give you a percentage of that equity. Do they take fees? You better believe it. Do they take fees and charge you for the foreclosure fees? Yep. Do they charge you because the foreclosure process starts when you're 30 days late? 90 days in, the sheriff gets paid to serve the notice of foreclosure. The auctioneer gets paid. If they have multiple auctions, the people that they pay to do notices. Everybody's going to have their hands in the cookie jar. And so if you have $50,000 out of that equity, are you going to see, as it stands now, are you going to walk away with 50,000? No, not even close. Which is why I know I'm a broken record tonight on this, but I think being real with yourself, I think being, and this is not to you, Miss H, directly, I'm talking, in general, being real with your situation, you are far better selling the property before you foreclose. Now, you hire an agent, yes, that's an extra cost. It's up to you. If you feel confident you sell it yourself, do that. if you are able to handle the, selling the property and doing all the things that involve selling it on your own, then by all means you can do that. Save yourself a little bit more money. I would caution in the sense that, of course, I'm biased in the sense that I know what a good agent does. Not all agents save you money. I'd rather I would rather half the time you'd probably be better off not using an agent at all instead of using a crummy agent, an 80% agent. But if you've got a really great agent, you likely will end up making more money, even though it's costing you money. Sounds counterintuitive, but yes, it's costing you more money. But that agent, historically, and the data supports this, that when you're working with a good agent, the likelihood of you actually getting a higher sale price and putting more money in your pocket overrides the cost of hiring an agent. But more importantly, the point I'm making is, as soon as you are late, as soon as you have an inkling that you might be in trouble with your mortgage payments, that you're not sure if you're going to be able to make your mortgage payments, you got to start the process. You can always pull out the last minute and say, you know what, I'm not going to sell, but get the ball rolling. Why? Because even if you're selling your house, if the foreclosure, once that foreclosure process starts, you cannot stop it. I can't emphasize that enough. Once the foreclosure process starts, you cannot stop it. Even if you have your house on the market, and I saw this happen where we had buyers, and when I was representing buyers during the great financial crisis, one of the first things I did was I went on public records to see if there was any foreclosure notices filed, because if there were, we had a small window. I had people reach out. I want to sell my property. Great. I would go on to the public records to see if they had any foreclosure notices filed. And a couple times I had to deliver the hard news. I can't sell your house. I don't have time. I don't have time. We don't even have 30 days. And even if we're scheduled to close tomorrow, if that foreclosure auction is scheduled for today, game over. Game over. You're not, the property is it will be foreclosed. And honestly, I have seen situations where the buyer is now, not that I'm directly involved in, but a buyer who wants to buy that property finds out it's in foreclosure and says, you know what? I'm just going to go to the auction. They've already done the home inspection. They know about the property, all the things. They go to the auction. They buy it for cheaper because they know what's happening and they leverage that against you, and that stinks. So you got to get in there as quickly as possible, because it's far less painful to sell it, take the money that you can, rather than go through the foreclosure process. And now your credit's wrecked for 7 years, and now you've got to rent. And even landlords will frown on you when they do a credit check and they see a bankruptcy or a foreclosure. You're going to end up paying top dollar for a rental as well, because of that. So yes, you do get the money, but definitely not the first option. So I hope that helps you. A great question. MHOA says, how long does it take to become a 20% agent? It's not a matter of time. It's a matter of your commitment to your profession. And what I'd like to use the saying, sharpening your saw. Sharpening your saw would be learning, trying to be continually better. Courses, designations, classes, anything and everything that allows you to learn how to be a better agent. But I mean, typically, to be honest, the rule of thumb in the real estate industry is it takes about 3 to 5 years to even get your feet out underneath you. If you're less than 5 years, you're a new agent. It is what it is. Yeah, you don't have enough. Even if if you're selling a ton of property, even in the first 4 years, you don't really know what you're doing. It just is. And in my opinion, you shouldn't be selling that kind of property. You should be, I firmly believe you should be mentoring. You shouldn't be helping people make decisions on, selling their home, and you've only got, a couple of years of experience under your belt. I just don't believe that to be true. 3 to 5 years. I think that if you are a super active agent, meaning you're out in the field, You're taking the classes, you're getting the designations, you're learning how to do it the proper way, the ethical way. Because there's so many, when I'm vetting out agents, yes, I look at proficiency, transactions. I look at how active they are in the market. I look at where they're, what they're doing, where they're selling, all the things. But as important is their empathy. Do they put their clients first? I go on their social media profiles and see what they're talking about. Is it all about me, me, me? Or are they championing the client? When I talk to them, I want to know, have you ever, convinced a seller to not sell or a buyer to not buy? But so I don't think it's not a, I hope that answers your question. It's not a set in stone time frame, because let me tell you, I can give you a handful of people that have been in this business 10, 20 years that are hands down 80% agents, because they're just kind of floating. They're floating and they're not committed to their craft. It's a lot of work being a real estate agent if you do it right. If you do it right. Thanks for asking that question. Yes, you're very welcome, Cindy. So, yeah, you know what? My feeling is, I try to tell my kids this as they go off into the world. These things happen. Number one, none of these things happen by accident, my feeling. But it's not a wasted experience if you learn something. It's never a wasted, something bad is never, ever wasted if you walk away with a lesson. If you just wallow in the self-pity and say, oh, why me? All these things bad, bad, bad happened to me. Well, then it's a wasted experience. But if you walk away and be like, okay, that's thanks. That was not fun. That hurt. That whatever. That made me mad. But I learned I'm going to look for this next time, and I'm going to do that different next time, and all that. It's not a wasted experience. It's not a wasted experience. We have so many experiences in life that people are just so caught up in. I don't know. I can go down a rabbit hole here, but so many experiences where it's very much wasted. It's a wasted experience because they're so caught up in the bad thing that happened, instead of taking a step back and saying, okay, so what door did open for me? I have had the opportunity. My daughter, and I'll just say this, my daughter who got into a car accident, totaled her car on Easter this year. My youngest baby, on her way home from work on Easter, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, get the call that no parent wants. Mom, I'm in a car accident. Where are you? I'm sitting in the back of an ambulance. Oh my God, are you okay? Yes. She fell asleep at the wheel. Car veered across, was on a double lane, 45-mile-an-hour road, crossed over, hit a tree. Car rolled over, came to stop upside down. And this kid walked away with a seatbelt burn here because she was hanging upside down, and that is it. By the grace of God. I think my uncle, who passed away three days prior, was riding shotgun. But I said to her, I said, this is awful. She loved her car. It was her first car, and it was, it was traumatic. It was traumatic in so many different ways. Now, poor kid, her insurance went through the roof and all the things. So easy to get lost in that. But I said, there is a reason. You have a unique set of circumstances here, kid. You have the benefit of a lesson without the scar, without the long-lasting scars. And I'm not talking physical scars, I'm talking mental scars. And don't waste it. And a lot of folks will do that, whether you're talking about housing or whatnot. And Cindy, into your situation, it's like, okay, so what really impacted me? Well, did you lose money? Did you lose your house? All the things, like you go through the checklist and you say, well, maybe this was a thing that I had the benefit of an experience without massive side effects, without long lasting side effects. Anyways, didn't mean to go down that road, and sorry if I bored you guys, but I think there's always these hidden lessons in everything in life. So it's my show. I can talk about what I want to. MHOA's just asked AI what day it is. And is I'm an AI and I don't have real-time capabilities, so I can't provide the current data. Find out the current state. Check your device's calendar. That's it. You know what? That's in it in a nutshell. One of these days, it's going to say, what's the weather? I don't know. Look outside. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. 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 Isn't that the truth? Um. Oh, Sydney says, for me, a ranch house is an alternative to a senior apartment. I'm looking close to stores, medical services, driving with 30 minutes for everything is getting old for me. You've got a strong why, Sydney. You've got a really, really strong why. Why you want to move. So my suggestion would be to start thinking outside the box and start exploring other communities. There are a lot of communities in this country that are more affordable that and are unknown than we realize. But it requires research. It requires, investigation, um, time, energy. But I'm a firm believer. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to get it. I've lived that way. I try to impart that in my kids. Within reason. If I really want to be a brain surgeon, no, I'm never going to be a brain surgeon. I don't have the hands for a brain surgeon. That's what, 50 years of asthma medications will do. I'm never going to be a brain surgeon. But if I want to replumb the downstairs, my basement, plumbing in my basement, after I do research and all the things, and I realize I can do this, I spend weeks and I did it. And I learned how to do ProPress and all the things. Was it easy? No. Were there some learning curves? Yes. Did I do it? Yes. Knock on wood. Still strong. Matter of fact, my heating company offered me a job as a backup plumber if this real estate YouTube gig doesn't work out. I said no, thank you. It's not easy work. Oh my goodness. Lowell says here in OC, Orange County, California, I see a slight increase inventory of single family houses. Builders are putting up condos. Oh, I think condos are making a comeback in huge numbers. They're all 3 stories, garage, first floor, getting really luxurious. Yeah, we're seeing that. It says correction. Well, this is a correction, not luxurious. Yeah, so we're seeing that here. I have been seeing it for a couple of years here in where I'm at in Plymouth, in the surrounding areas. I think that we're going to see more. The condo market had an explosion in the 80s. Why? Because of similar circumstances. Interest rates were crazy high, affordability was low, economy not good. It was there. It wasn't a good. So what was the solution? Affordable housing, condominiums. Condominiums. The only thing that is going to, the linchpin that could kill that whole scenario is having HOA fees that are ridiculously high. But keep in mind, a brand new condominium compared to, say, a 30-year-old condominium, 30-year-old, 25-year-old condominium building is going to require more maintenance, which means more reserves, which means a higher HOA. Brand new, you don't need as much money for reserves on a condo fee. So your condo fees are typically on new buildings start a little lower, and they inch up as they get older and they need more repairs. I think we're going to see more condominiums across the country. That's my prediction. You heard it here first, folks. We'll see what happens. Oh, people call me Craig. Would it be worthwhile to refinish the hardwood floor in my living room prior to listing for sale? It's not in bad shape, but could use some sprucing up. My recommendation always, when it comes to things like that, because refinishing hardwoods, it's a pain. It's a pain if you're going to do it yourself or hire a company. Refinishing means moving all that furniture out. It means sealing off doorways. It means, dust bowl heaven and all the things. Without seeing your house, the thing that I would reflect on is, and ask yourself the question, are the hardwood floors the only thing that potentially could be a drawback? Now, If you are in a home that is dated and it needs more than hardwood floor refinishing, if it needs, it needs some windows, maybe the bathroom needs to be updated, the kitchen needs to be updated. It's in good shape, but it's dated. It needs some work. You know what? Refinishing the hardwood floors is not going to make a hill of beans. It's not going to make any difference, in the grand scheme of things. But if the house is updated, it's in great condition overall, and the only wart, I'll call it, is the hardwood floors. You know what? You're not going to realize the money. Say you spend $5,000 refinishing the floors. You're not going to add $5,000 to the sale price of the house. However, you could remove the objection a buyer has or buyers have, which means you will get an offer quicker potentially, which means the quicker you get an offer, the shorter the time frame between the list time and the offer time, that is going to dictate how far off a list price you get. So in other words, the first couple weeks are usually the most critical. You're typically going to get at asking, maybe a little, the first week you're going to get at or above asking. After the first week, maybe, first 10 days, 2 weeks, depending on how much traction you're getting. If you get multiple offers, you might get above asking. But the longer you're on the market, you're going to see the difference between what it lists for and the sale price. You're going to start to see that gap grow. So the shorter period of time, the sooner you can get an offer, the better chance you have of realizing a higher sale price. So you could argue that if the hardwood floors help you get offers sooner, and maybe get more than one offer, but say it just helps you get an offer sooner, well, a sooner offer helps put, historically a higher sale price. So it doesn't directly add value, but it could indirectly add value. I hope that makes sense to you guys, because it's not, none of this stuff, when we're talking about this type of scenario, whether it be hardwood floors or any other update, it's not cut and dry, because it depends on your house, depends on your market. But I hope that helps. Let's see. Mandamo's got the QQQ. If you had a property listed in a cold weather state and softening market, would you take it off for winter and relist it in the spring? Listing set to expire 12/18, worried spring in Colorado won't be better. So not necessarily, because people buy 12 months out of the year. I would say you've got to look at what your goals are. You've got to look at why it's on the market, where you're going. If you have a place to go to and it doesn't matter when it goes under contract, I would not necessarily take it off the market. But it also depends on what's happening with the market, is what's happening with your pricing. How much traffic you've had, how much, what the response, what the feedback has been. Is it possible? And again, it's about having the hard conversations, a reoccurring theme in this live stream tonight, having a really hard conversation with yourself about realizing and admitting, where you're at with pricing. And if the house, it could be a market situation where there's just not, the buyers are just not buying in your market. It is entirely possible. It could be that your price is not where it needs to be, and then just keeping it on the market longer is just going to be delaying the inevitable, and you're not necessarily going to get any more for the house. The thing is about when you're looking at holiday seasons, and with our holiday seasons coming up here, when you're looking at holiday, when you're looking at winter seasons, climate challenges, the buyers that are out, and there will be buyers. The real estate market never stops. Somebody, they're relocating into the area, they need to buy a house. They finally get the job that they've been working for, and they're tired of living in their temporary quarters. They need to buy a house. The market never stops. The big difference is that when you hit holidays and into the winter, the buyers are serious. They're super serious. So there's definite advantages, to keeping your house on the market, because a lot of sellers take their house off the market. Inventory drops. It always drops. There's going to be few to choose from. So if you've got a super motivated buyer and you have your house on the market, you have a higher chance of getting that house under contract. Less competition. But you've got to decide, and really be honest with yourself on where you're at with your pricing and where you're at with, look at your data in terms of what it looks like, since you put it on the market. Holding off till spring, historically, prices values typically go up, in the spring because there's more competition. There's more buyers, I should say. This is more competition, but there's typically more buyers. There's more demand. So that usually drives the prices up. But you've got to look at if the prices soften over the winter and then they go up, are the prices when they go up going to be the same as where they were in early fall? Yeah, everyone says, oh, but selling the spring is the best. Not necessarily. And if you're in a situation where you really, really need to sell, my suggestion would be, you know what, be honest with yourself, maybe do a price reduction. You could always take it off the market for the holidays, put it on the market first week in January. You could do that too. Let's see. Charlton, he says, so it sounds like a lot of work to become a licensed agent, so not for older people. Well, first off, define older, Charlton, because that word has no, as there's folks that are in their 80s going to college. Like, I have talked to agents that are in their 70s that have infinitely more energy than I do. It doesn't matter. It does, it's not for any demographic. I think it's got to be for the person that wants to that is devoted. A lot of agents get into real estate as their second career, their third career. Teachers, believe it or not, the educational system, a lot of real estate agents were former teachers that either left the profession, they retired, or they got laid off and got into real estate. And teachers that have gone into becoming real estate agents a lot of them end up being fantastic real estate agents because you know what? They're not salespeople. They're there to help you understand. I was never a teacher, but maybe, I don't know, the patience to work with kids and all the things. But it's food for thought. Food for thought. Um, let's see. Paul T says, just checking in to say our home sold. Let's go. Woohoo! Grateful for wonderful buyers in Pennsylvania. Fantastic. Congratulations. That's fantastic. We appreciate your common sense advice. I appreciate you being here. I really, really do. And I'm so happy for you. Things are moving. Let's see here. Copper kerfuffle. I love your handle. That's so much fun. Oh, I got a kitty cat. Hi, Jen. I'm in the process of interviewing the agent you referred to me here in Sacramento and Fair Oaks. She seems professional and knowledgeable. Thanks. You're very, very welcome. I hope it goes well. Please keep me posted. I want to hear how it goes. Let's see. Yes, so happy she's well and good. I'm assuming you're talking about my daughter. Yeah, and you know what? The best thing, for those that have teenage teenage kids, uh, or grandchildren or whatever. The best thing I did was encourage her to get behind the wheel immediately, and after that traumatic experience. So my insurance thankfully covered rentals that 18-year-olds can drive. So we got a rental car a couple days later and she was behind the wheel right away. And I think that was, you got to get back in the saddle. Yes. I think she had some angels riding with her on Easter. On Easter. Hey, I'm grateful. She called me right before I was putting the ham in the oven. I said, thank you, kid. I didn't really want to spend Easter Sunday in the emergency room, but I'm so, 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 so grateful. Yes. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Cindy. I appreciate all you guys being here. I'm happy to impact and help, teach, share all this sometimes useless information inside my head. Oh my goodness. Isn't that the truth? A lot of satisfaction figuring out how to do things yourself. I cannot overstate this, Angie, as a woman, to say that, I figured this out. I did this plumbing. I did this electrical. I did it within always safety, safety first, safety first, safety first. But to stand back and say, I did that, mm, there's no other drug that's more powerful. It's an adrenaline rush. It's amazing. Talking to my good friend Jackie just the other day, she had a technical issue and she's not a real technical person. I'm usually trying to guide her, and she's in New Jersey and I'm in Massachusetts. I'm trying to do it long distance and everything. And she's like, I figured out my camera right. I did it on my own. I said, and I'm like, okay, you feel that rush, Jackie? I said, that's what I feel every time I do a DIY project. It's addicting. Um, People call me crazy. This is the only way they are allowed to build anything in the LA area. Well, LA area is tough. Is if it's mixed use, stores with condos over them. That's happening. That is absolutely happening because, especially with, I mean, I hate to say it, with the mom and pop stores, being downsized, trying to make better use of space, office buildings, a lot of, and a lot of, unused office buildings. A lot of these companies, even though there was a call for people to come back into the office, just like you see with these layoffs of these big retailers, these management positions, they're trimming the fat. People that have jobs that they don't really need. So when you trim that fat, you don't need a physical person to do the thing, the data entry or whatnot. You don't need that office space. So a lot of office spaces, the office buildings are being converted to condos to make better use of the space. And that often helps, especially in in major cities where, real estate is at a premium and hard to get your foot in the door. But if you can get yourself into a small condo, good way to go. Interesting. So Angie's down in SoCal, Southern California. Days on market actually went down from 23 to 15, 23 days to 15 last month. Interesting. Interesting. The worst and messiest job we've ever done is chipping tile out of the whole house and putting in new floors. Yeah, so I got a tile story for you. Never put tile in a flimsy bucket at the top of the stairs. When my husband and I bought the house that we're in now, and it was a fixer upper, good bones, but it was a fixer upper. And the upstairs was the nice baby blue, powder blue tile with little etchings, little swirlies, whatever. And when we renovated that bathroom ourselves, we cut up we destroyed the tile, all the stuff, put the things in. My husband grabbed the bucket, went to walk down the stairs, and the edge of the bucket broke. And we had tile and tile dust everywhere down the stairs. And I had holes to patch from the tile. Oh gosh, I had forgotten that until you reminded me. Thanks, Angie. Oh, but learned the lesson. Learned the lesson about that. That was pretty messy. But yeah, taking up tile is not it's not fun, but can be very satisfactory. A lot of satisfaction on demo. I love demoing. Let's see. Clifford says, FYI on all these 3-story condos, fine for the young and perhaps the middle-aged. However, not a good day if you're in your 60s or above. You never know when you might have to have knee or hip trouble. I agree. And what's interesting is that we have actually seen here in my area, and I know it's popping up other areas. They're building these attached townhomes. They're actually considered attached single families, and so that you're still responsible for your section of the roof and all the things, but they're multiple stories. And I look at it and I kind of scratch my head, doing the same thing. On the flip side, people are living longer. They're healthier than they ever have been. They're more active than they ever have been. So the idea of 55, going into, it has to be a 1 level. Now, I agree with you. I personally wouldn't go into a 3 level after I sell this someday. Not for a while, but when I do. But a lot of folks do. I help some retirees. They live part-time California, part-time here. They bought a 3 level, a townhome. They had no problems with the stairs. Super active, super healthy. And you know what? The fallback is you can do a chairlift or you could sell it if it becomes an issue. But as a whole, it's a very interesting, you make a very good point, very interesting phenomenon that's happening. Um, let's see. Da, 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 da. You're very welcome. My very welcome. Um, Karen says, I talked to my realtor about taking mine off the market in December and relisting in January 6th to reset the days on market. She said there are buyers in December between Christmas and New Year's. They are sitting at home on their phone. Well, I mean, that's true for the entire month of November and December. It's not just, I mean, yeah, December and New Year's, is people are on vacation. I mean, that's always going to be the case. Just like on Thanksgiving, do you think everybody's out on Black Friday shopping? No, I never go out for Black Friday. My anxiety wouldn't let, that would be a nightmare dealing with all those people. And I've got friends that love it. Love it. It's a sport. But there's a lot of people that don't go anywhere near stores and they're relaxing. They take some time off. They're doing that, the weekend after Thanksgiving as well. So I think there's justification um for putting the house, for keeping it on the market. In terms of trying to sell it. I think it's just a matter of, like I said, you've got to be honest with your pricing, but also you've got to adjust your expectations. Whatever you're having for traffic now is going to decrease. It's just it because there's fewer buyers out there, but the buyers are super serious, super serious. So there's definite benefits either way. Let's see. Oh, we got my good friend Joe Pareca. I just talked to you the other day and forever. How you doing? All the way from California over there. Oh gosh, demo wasn't so fun when tile was super glued in many areas. Oh, that's a DIY gone wrong. Had to use industrial tire. Oh my goodness. Good grief. That sounds like when we bought our house, there were literally 3 or 4 layers of linoleum in the kitchen. There were like 3 layers of wallpaper on every wall. That was a nightmare. Got through it though. Did it right. Fabiano says we need to remember the Fed is going to Q1 in December 1st. Also another 0.25% coming. Yes, spring 2026 can be better than 2025 if the private equity bubble doesn't burst in the next 6 months. I agree. I know there's so many question marks, so many, potential things that could happen. I mean, it really does, and how many more layoffs? One of the things I read about in these articles was that a lot of these layoffs are coming as a result of overhiring during the pandemic. During the pandemic, everybody's sitting at home and they're doing they're not leaving, so they're ordering and delivery and all the things, and things have changed. People are scaling back. They're going, easing up on their spending, because they're not necessarily, financially strapped, but they're being more cautious. They're being more careful because of the uncertainty of what's happening in the market because nothing's gotten any cheaper, groceries or cars or, anything, as a whole. And they're holding back. So all those hires that they brought on, they're resetting to trim in the fat. So is it a sign that the economy is crashing, or is it a reset and a reaction to an overhiring that happened during pandemic? Inquiring minds want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Let's see here. Dun 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 dun. Adam. Adam, good to see you. We recently put an offer in on a home through the seller's agent and was declined, but was told they would entertain seller financing, which we're open. So we'll entertain seller financing, which we're open to. So how do we put an offer together. You need to get an attorney involved. If you have seller financing, any kind of seller financing, you need to absolutely get an attorney involved. I would make sure that you write an offer just like you would. If there's seller financing and you're going through the seller's agent, number one, make sure that I would 100% in your own mind, even if the seller's agent is saying that I'm representing you as a buyer's agent, okay, nix that right in the butt. You do not and will not. I strongly advise against a dual agency situation. It is not possible for a listing agent to represent two parties, period, which means everything they do, because they have their existing relationship with the seller, they're going to prioritize that over you. Number one. Number two, if that's the case, don't pay a buyer agent fee because she's not representing you. Period. Okay. And then additionally, you got to make sure that you've got some legal help in your corner. You want to make sure that when you submit that offer, that you have language in there of, to be determined, the seller financing terms to be determined by X date, to make sure that the seller's not going to turn around and be like, okay, a seller financing, 15% interest rate fixed and a balloon payment in 5 years. Like, you want to make sure that you don't get stuck. You got to be careful. Totally doable, but careful. Get a real estate attorney involved on the language to make sure that you can A, be protected, and B, the attorney is going to help you put that seller financing lien, that note, that mortgage note is going to be created. You're going to make sure that you're represented well legally on the creation of that lien on that note. Hope that helps you. Good question. Dun, 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 dun. Fabian says, FYI, the Fed did a $50 billion RIPO on Friday, 31st, no liquid in the market. Yeah, there's so many unknowns. With what the Fed is doing, because they're doing it blindfolded at this point. Because they don't have the market data. Angie said, I literally had no furniture in the house. I lived on a couch with a cardboard table and of tile in the corners. Yeah, when we bought our house, we had all the floors, ripped up all the floors, did all the demo ourselves, and then literally we have a 2-car garage under, and we had no kids when we moved in. So my husband and I lived in the basement for like a month. Because I put in unfinished hardwoods. So unfinished hardwoods, and then, sanding it, polyurethane, 3 or 4 coats. I don't remember how many coats of polyurethane they did. It was a mess. I'm going to jump over the poll. Let's check out and see what's going on with the poll. Oh, very interesting. Okay. So the poll says, have the recent layoffs affected you or someone you know? So 18% says, unfortunately, yes, I'm so sorry. If you're part of the 18%, I'm very, very sorry about that. If it's affected you or a loved one, someone you know. 10% said not yet, but possibly soon. And shore up those reserves. It's all about reserves these days, guys. Save. I think it's good advice. I used to tell my first time home buyers, you've got to have reserves, you got to have reserves. Everybody. Americans compared to the 50s and 60s, nobody saves any money. It's hard to save money. It's hard. It's really hard. But the savings, the number of people it's absolutely startling how many people live paycheck to paycheck in this country. It's disturbing, really. Scale back. We all got to scale back, and be careful. But anyway, thankfully, no, 72%. So 72% of you said it's not affecting you, but the reality of it is I think even if you're not directly affected by the layoffs, I think after our discussion here, you might be indirectly affected. whether it be if you're in an area like Seattle, if you're in an area like Minneapolis, where Target headquarters is, if you're in an area where you are, where you're in a corporate headquarters location, and you've got a lot of people that are being laid off that live in your area, then that might affect your housing market. Even though it doesn't affect you directly, it will affect you indirectly. And that's something that we just got to keep an eye on as it unfolds. Adam says, I totally agree with getting the attorney before the finalization, but can I put an offer with those terms to be determined beforehand? Yes. So my suggestion is I would put a contingency in the offer that gives you an exit, and make, so you want to put, subject to buyer and seller agreeing to seller financing terms by date, period, and give it, a couple weeks, for the attorneys to go back and forth and all the things. But you do not need an attorney for that. But just make sure you leave it, you put it in there. I mean, it's always, if you can run it by an attorney, fantastic. But can you put an offer in just to see if it sticks? Just make sure that that contingency protects you, and you have leverage, and you have the ability to back out if need be. Just in case, anytime you put in, buyer and seller need to agree to terms, then it's just a matter of, you don't agree, and get your money, you get your deposit back, and on you go. Miss H, when you bought your first home, were you a realtor, and did that help at all being so? Okay. Yes and yes. I was green as all can be, a 6 months, 6 months fresh-faced green real estate agent, and living in a 300 square foot apartment. I says, I can't be a real estate agent and rent. I need to buy something. So hubby and I bought a townhome to get our foot in the door, and it helped because of the fact that I was able to, talk to the agent, and actually it was listed by another agency, but an agent in my office had a relationship with another agent. This is before computers, 1996. Okay, 1996, nobody had computers. It was all picking up the phone and relationships and everything else. Another agent had this townhome that was rented, and it was not in terrific condition, but the landlord, the owner, just wanted to get, wanted it to be gone, wanted to be done. And so because of that, those relationships, I was able to put an offer in, and, get it accepted, and get our foot in the door. And then took us weeks to deep clean. Weeks. Oh, they like to cook fish almost every night. Let's just put it to that way. Oh, it was just, we had to air out the place a lot. But needless to say, it did help. Am I going to represent myself when I sell my house, or hire someone? To be determined, because I've been here for, now this is my second house, sold the condo, bought this, and been here 25 years. And how do you separate emotions from, the process? I don't know. I'll keep you guys posted, but it did help, in that regard. So I hope it answered the question. Let's see. Delete that Amazon shopping cart. That's a hard thing to do, my friend. Let's see. I love you. I love your comments here. Blue Jeans Knifer says, I lived in the garage with 2 Great Danes while I had my floors done. You know what? I'd walk out in the morning to go to the house, wonder what the neighbors thought. So this ties in to what I was saying earlier. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure out how to do it, how to get it. If you want something bad enough, you will persevere. You will be creative. You will see things that you didn't normally see. You'll see avenues that you didn't normally see. If you want it bad enough, you want to sell your house during the winter, if you want to buy a ranch house, if you want to move badly enough, you will figure out a way to make it happen. And there you go. 100%. Hopefully you were fully clothed. Blue Jeans 94. That's the only thing I would say. That's the only thing that when I'm putting my trash out to the curb every Tuesday morning, I say, okay, I've got my sweatshirt on, I got my pants on. All right, check. That's all that really matters. Oh my goodness, guys. As always, it's been a pleasure. I thank you very, very much for hanging out with me, spending your precious time and joining in the conversation. I very much appreciate it. Very, very much appreciate it. It's not lost on me that you could be anywhere doing anything, watching multiple different YouTubers do it in the space, all the things, and you chose to spend some time with me, and I appreciate you. So listen, if you're so inclined, I'll be here again next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel, 6 p.m. Eastern time. 6 p.m. Eastern time next Tuesday. I'll be here with whatever the heck's going on in the housing market during this week. But in the meantime, guys, check in on your neighbors. Try to be kind. We're entering the holidays. Emotions tend to ramp up a little bit. Let's be patient with each other. Everybody's got a little pressure, especially right now. If if people are under financial pressure and they maybe having a hard time affording Thanksgiving meals and all the things. Now is a time that if you can do. If you can help, do. If you can donate, do. Abundance is the key. Help each other out. Doesn't matter if you're red or blue or purple or green or what the heck. We got to help each other out. Look out for each other. And remember, before you judge, seek to understand. Everybody's got a cross to bear. Everybody's got stuff they're dealing with. So keep that in mind. Guys, have a wonderful week, a wonderful rest of the week and weekend. Stay warm if you're in the Northeast and other, upper climates. And you know what? And if you're in the southern climates or having nice warm weather, well, enjoy it. Maybe send some up north. You guys have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much. Ciao.